I'd like to start first on behalf of the entire NTSB. Our thoughts are with those who were injured in this event. I'd also like to give thanks to the first responders. There was a tremendous response. The City of San Bruno's Public Works staff, the San Bruno Fire and Rescue, Central County, South San Francisco Fire Department, the Menlo Park Fire Protection. Without all of their efforts, this could have been a lot worse, and they just did a tremendous job. The facts, which I think many of you may already know, but we'll just go through them. On Thursday, March 11th, about 10:30, southbound train 506, Caltrain, which was a locomotive and 5 cars, collided with a construction work train. On board the train were 75 people, 3 crew, and the rest were passengers. There was one serious injury, which was the one of the construction workers. A total of 5 were transported to the hospital, and for a total of 13. The work train, which was received the collision, was made up of 3 vehicles. There was a truck and 2 equipment cranes, which were working to install the electrification system, the catenary, for your new train system. The train was moving at about 60 miles an hour when it collided with the work train. The authorized speed limit here is a maximum of 79 miles per hour. We'll have more detail on that when we get the full event data recorder from the locomotive downloaded. From the point of impact until where the train and the vehicles came to rest was over 500 feet. So they hit it pretty hard. One of the vehicles had the fuel tank punctured, and that was the source of the fire. The fire did not originate, as far as we know at this point, from the locomotive itself. We're downloading the event data recorder, and there was onboard outward-facing video in the locomotive. This is going to be tremendously helpful to us as we establish what happened in this crash. So NTSB's role here is to investigate the crash, and I'd like to introduce our investigator in charge, John Minutis, who's standing behind me, and he's going to be working with the various operations team that we have assembled here, which will include operations, signals, track, engineering, survival factors, and human factors. We have a number of parties, so we don't do this all by ourselves. We need the expertise of many different groups. So the Federal Railroad Administration is here. We will also have Caltrain working with us, the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, the Transit America Service Incorporated, or TASI, which actually operates the trains for Caltrain, Balfour and Beatty, which is one of the contractors, the Sheet Metal Air Rail Transportation Workers Union, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees, and the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen. So we have a very broad base which will allow us to get a very good look at what happened with all of the different types of expertise that go along with that. Our team will be here for about several days, just long enough to get all of the perishable information, and we'll be collecting additional information for probably about 3 months. And at that point, then we go into the analysis phase, and that will take anywhere from 15 to 18 months before we get a final report and a probable cause. At each of these report areas, that will be made public on our website. Very simply, the purpose here is to understand what happened. That's usually pretty clear. But the why it happened is why we're here. And then most importantly, after we've done that, is to figure out how we can prevent anything like this from happening again. One of the aspects that we're going to be looking at is positive train control, and I'd like our investigator in charge, Mr. Minutis, to address that, if you would. John, would you talk about that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Landsberg. Again, my name is John Minutis. I'm the investigator in charge for the NTSB for this accident. And on behalf of our 6-person on-scene team and all of our colleagues and partners, our condolences to the victims of this accident and our gratitude to our federal, state, and local partners. In 2008, Congress passed the Rail Safety Improvement Act of 2008, which required that railroads install positive train control on certain passenger lines and other freight lines across the nation. This system is designed to prevent certain types of accidents and is in a direct response to tragic accidents that had happened up until that time. PTC is designed and engineered to prevent train-to-train collisions, incursions by trains into established work zones, to prevent the movement of trains into switches that are left in the wrong position, and to prevent overspeed derailments. Caltrain began a revenue service demonstration of their positive train control system in 2019, and in December of 2020, completed the installation and testing of a fully certified positive train control system. The performance of the positive train control system will be one of the focuses of our team's investigation while we're here on scene and as we go forward into the future. As part of that investigation, we can confirm that positive train control was on and active on the accident train at the time and day of the accident. Our team has captured various components from the system and begun the process of downloading and reviewing all of the PTC data available from this incident.
Thank you. So some of the other operational systems that we'll be looking at is Centralized Train Control, which is an earlier version of managing railroad operations, the track circuits, the roadway worker protection, and we'll have more to say about that, the radio and cell phone communication between the dispatcher and the on-site coordinator, and there are transcripts of all of that recording, so we'll be able to know exactly who said what and to whom and when. Now, all of this may sound pretty simple, but it isn't. And NTSB has investigated quite a number of crashes involving roadway worker problems. Some of the more recent ones involved a crash in Chester, Pennsylvania, and another one in Bowie, Maryland, and unfortunately those resulted in fatalities. This is not an isolated incident, and it's something that NTSB has been working with for some time. So, railroad worker safety is on the NTSB's most wanted list. These are the items that we feel are the most important, and we really would like to see the system manage a little better. We have recommendations out. After each incident or crash, we will typically make some type of recommendation to the Federal Railroad Administration, to the railroads themselves, and maybe some of the employee unions to say, here's what we saw, what went wrong, and here's what we think we can do to make it better. I should point out, NTSB is not a regulatory organization, so we don't set the rules. We're an independent organization, and our job is strictly to look at the facts and present them in a bipartisan, non-political manner. That's hard to do these days, but that's how we do it. Some of the recommendations that we have out there for roadway work protection, we want to establish redundant systems. So if one system fails, there's a backup so we don't have a loss of life. We want to check on dispatcher and foreman communications, which I just mentioned earlier, to make sure that there are no misunderstandings. And also schedule management, which is how the railroads control how the trains run up and down their tracks and at what speed, and obviously that's going to be different depending upon whether there's a work zone or a construction zone going on. All of our recommendations are online and they are available for you to see. Some of them have been there for years. Some of them are held open as we hope that they will be adopted. Others have been closed as unacceptable, and all of that will be available. Jennifer has the links for you, so if you would like to pursue that, there's a lot of layers to the onion here, and that's why we want to spend the time that we are taking a look at this. At this point, we'll take your questions. If you would, please raise your hand. I'll call on you. Then please state your name and who you're affiliated with. So, sir, since your hand went up first, you got the first one.
My name is Sergio Quintana. I'm a reporter over at NBC Bay Area News here in San Francisco. The commuters are trying to figure out when they might be able to resume service. You mentioned that the team's going to be here on the ground for quite a while. Any idea when the scene will be released so that then Caltrain can start peeling this whole scene apart and figuring out how to fix service?
Excellent question. Let me ask Mr. Minutis about that.
Yeah. Thank you for that excellent question. Essentially, the question is, when will the NTSB release the scene to Caltrain to begin the repair process? We got on scene and really began our efforts today. We began in some earnest to get out and collect the information. Our main focus while we're on scene is to collect perishable evidence, that evidence that will, if we don't grab it now, disappear. So our plan is to wrap that portion up for the physical evidence in the next 12 to 24 hours, move the evidence that we can to a secure location, and allow Caltrain to repair and get back the service for the commuters.
Thank you. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Cheryl with NBC Bay Area News here in San Francisco. You talked about position train control, the PCT.
Positive train control, yes.
Right, you're saying it was on, and the whole thing is that why didn't the train know that the truck was doing repairs on the tracks? So if it was on, and I know you're in the very beginning stages of your investigation, how can that happen?
The question is, if positive train control was on, why didn't it prevent the crash? That's exactly what we're here to find out, and I wish I could give you a definite answer on that point, but the answer is we don't know yet, but I can guarantee you we will find out. And I don't know that it'll be in the preliminary report, but it'll certainly be in the final report. And there's a lot of interest in this, obviously. NTSB made the first recommendations for positive train control over 50 years ago. And it took this long to get it implemented pretty much throughout all of the passenger rail areas. And so we're wondering what happened too, and so we hope to find that out.
Could I have a follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a lot of confusion as to what was hit. Was it one truck with three apparatus on it? Can you kind of explain what it
So the work train consisted of a truck in the front, sort of a heavy-duty pickup type truck, and two flatbed trucks with cranes on them that were used to pick up the poles that you see for the catenaries and place them along the tracks. And at the crash site, we walked that earlier this afternoon. They are all in one big jumble. You won't even see what's left of the first truck. The driver, I think, who was in the truck, the foreman, saw the train coming and jumped out of the truck and got most of the other workmen out. The one who I think was injured the most, as far as we know at this point, was in one of the crane operators, and he either didn't hear or didn't get out, and so forth. But it's pretty impressive to see what a train can do to something like that. Yes, sir.
This afternoon we noticed that there was a whole team of people like right here. Is that kind of the point of impact at this stretch of the tracks, just like right over here?
The impact occurred just far off the end of the... So the question is, there was a big conglomeration of people over in this area. I think the impact occurred a little farther down. It was just off the end of the platform. And that's where the trucks were unloading or loading up the catenary poles when the train came around the corner, and then they jumped out. And then when the train impacted it, as I said, it's over 500 feet that it took for it to stop. and we'll have the data off the event data recorder as to exactly how fast the train was going. The engineer, from what we know, applied full braking and was blowing the horn and everything to warn the workers to get out of the way. So a real effort made on the part of the Caltrain engineer. Any other questions?
Just to reiterate, you said the final report could take over a year. How long for the preliminary report?
The preliminary, how long will it take for the preliminary report to come out? That should be available in about 3 weeks. So our team will be gathering the perishable evidence over the next several days here. They'll move the train so that you can get the tracks open again, and they have to do some repair work. And then after they have looked over the train thoroughly and we've looked at the damage that will be taken care of, then we'll release that and the preliminary report a couple of weeks after that. So about 3 weeks total.
Next question.
Any indication of how long those operators had to get out of the way once the brakes were applied or once the person started?
How long did it take for the the operators to get out? Not very. I don't know exactly how long that took, but the train was moving at 60 miles an hour. We'll establish a line of sight visibility off of the camera and so on, but I would say it was probably very few seconds. Fortunately, they were able to get out of the way, because if anybody had stayed there, they would not have survived. So a lot of fire damage and tremendous impact damage. The locomotive is in pretty good shape. We also look at the crash protection on the locomotives and the train cars and things of that nature, and we will be assessing all of that. Yes, sir.
Any information on damage to the tracks themselves?
John, would you like to?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that. It's a little bit difficult. The question was any information on the damage to the tracks themselves. It's a little bit difficult with the wreckage the way it is to make a full assessment. I would say that we will release that to Caltrain, like I said, in the next 12 to 24 hours, give them an opportunity to figure out what it is that needs to be done to repair it, and hopefully get it back as soon as possible.
Quick follow-up: is it because of fire or because of the impact itself that may have damaged the rails?
I think it would be. The question is it fire or impact? I think it's both. In our walking the tracks, the parallel track had some minor damage to it because one of the crane trucks got dragged along, and there's more to it than that, ballast and ties and things of that nature.
Yeah, the rail structure is damaged primarily from scraping, dragging. Impact may not be the exact term you would want to use. I would say it is momentum and force and plowing as things piled up. Primarily the rail's pretty resilient to fire damage. So I hope that helps characterize it a little bit.
Okay, great. I think we're good.
Okay, thank you very much.